All right, so good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this event, which is the third online GFD workshop of this semester. So my name is Isabelle Giraudou. I'm a member of the Global Faculty Development Initiative here at Komaba. Maybe before we start, let me first just explain that simultaneous Japanese interpretation is available for this workshop. So if you go to your Zoom menu, you should see in the bar at the bottom of your Zoom window that there is an interpretation button. So if you click on that, you can choose between English and Japanese. So please just choose the language that you'd like to listen to the presentation in. Knowing that the entire workshop will be working in this sort of bilingual way.
このようにバイリンガルで行います。質問については日本語または英語どちらでも構いません。
I wanted to take this opportunity to say a few words about some of our activities at GFD, besides workshops like this and other activities and events that you see advertised. One of the things we try to do at GFD is to provide resources to the faculty of the university at the University of Tokyo, particularly to those faculty who are teaching courses in languages other than Japanese. And there are two programs I would like to highlight that may be useful to you if you fall into this category. The first is called LOOK, which stands for Learning and Observing Outside Komaba. And basically our goal here is to assist faculty who are interested in attending conferences on teaching and learning or observing courses or teaching practices at other universities. Now, of course, with the current virus situation, it is difficult to travel, but if you're interested in attending online conferences, then please just apply to us and we can help you with things like registration fees. The second program I'd like to mention is called TASTE, which stands for Tasting Active Learning Sessions for Teaching Enhancement. And through this TASTE program, we can provide resources. It can be a financial help, it can be advice, it can also be peer feedback. So if you're interested in trying to introduce a new active learning type elements into your teaching, again, do not hesitate to apply to this program. If you've got ideas or new things you'd like to try in the classroom and you're not quite sure how to start, then get in touch with us and we will help you. Both of these programs are very straightforward to apply for. There is no deadline for the moment, so you can apply basically anytime. So I'm going now to post the link for our website in the chat. So please, I think it appears, please have a look and do not hesitate to apply to these GFD programs if you're interested. Maybe just a final word regarding the organization of this event. I saw in the chat that you have already received a feedback form for this event. Your feedback is indeed very helpful to us, and we would be very grateful if you could take just a few minutes to fill in the form. So now finally it's my pleasure to introduce John Augeri. Let me provide a little bit of background about him. John Augeri is a researcher and practitioner specialized in teaching and learning tools and environments. In addition to managing an international comparative study of physical learning space since 2016, he has been running region-wide faculty development initiatives since 2009 for the Île-de-France Digital University in Paris, and I'm sure that he will provide you with further information regarding these activities. John is active in Europe, North America, Southeast Asia, and Oceania, and is involved in several international associations and work groups, including EduCause, FlexSpace, Association for Learning Environments, and so forth. He has been invited to Japan 6 times as a visiting researcher, and actually we know very well John, who contributed in the recent past to many of our activities. So it's again with great pleasure that we welcome him to talk, to say more than just a few words about faculty development COVID-19, from emergency measures to a deeper shift in teaching. That's the question, lessons from a European perspective. So thank you again for joining this event, and thanks to you, John. Please.
Thank you very much, Isabel, and hello, everyone. It's really my pleasure to attend this event, and Isabel, you said very accurately the very nice collaboration that we have, GFD and myself, since now, I don't know, 4 years, 5 years, I think. I still remember the very first time I met Professor Woodward, and I think he's among us today. First, it was to discuss about the Komaba Active Learning studio, and since then, yeah, indeed, we have a very, very nice collaboration about the topics, and the very hot topic, which is the faculty development, especially in the very unique period we are going through right now. So thank you very much again for giving me this opportunity to be with you today. It's always a pleasure, really, really a pleasure. So indeed, Isabel, you already said quite a lot of things. I will add a couple of more. First, to apologize for my French accent, because despite my first name, I am French, indeed, as you may have guessed, considering my main position, which is indeed in Paris. So this Île-de-France Digital University is basically a multiple university consortium that I've had the pleasure to co-found 16 years ago now, in 2005. It was actually a higher education and research ministry nationwide project to create such kind of consortiums in all what we call regions. In France, it could be the sort of prefecture in Japan. And the idea was to mutualize a lot of things in digital matters, infrastructures, services, practices. And of course, today we're going to discuss about innovative practices, especially for teaching and learning. Isabel also mentioned indeed that I'm spending quite a lot of time in Japan, actually since 5 years, almost half of my time, a little bit less, but significantly staying in Japan. 6 times actually. I've had 6 times, 6 days, sorry, in Japan as visiting researcher. Twice at Kyoto University, where I'm staying right now for my second stay. I arrived there a couple of days ago for a second stay. The first one was in 2017 to work on the learning spaces, the innovative physical learning spaces. And of course, once again, I would like to mention the very, very nice and enjoyable stay I had late 2018 at the GFD, at the very GFD that is hosting this event today at University of Tokyo. It was a very, very nice stay, very interesting stay that I was there. So once again, all the pleasure that I have today to be with you. So the topic of today is faculty development, of course. And the idea is to give you the feedback that we have had in Europe, in France, especially through my digital university, about this faculty development, considering the very unique situation we have been going through. So as I told you, my digital university is in charge of mutualizing a lot of things among digital topics. And within those things, we have the faculty development. And first, I would like to explain you what was the old normal. So the old normal is actually dealing with this faculty development initiative that we started in September 2009. So it's not more than 10 years that it's running. It's a region-wide faculty development initiative. So the idea was to say, okay, we have, at that time, we had something like 20 universities in the Paris area in France. And the idea was to say, okay, we know that there are a lot of needs for faculty development, especially dealing with the digital tools. So why don't we do that once for all universities? because we know there are the needs. It's pretty difficult to organize such kind of things. So say, okay, let's mutualize. So that was the basic idea. And this is how it started in September 2009. I would like to mention that at that time, actually, the very idea to start such kind of initiative came from just, I think it was less than 10 people, such as me, who were interested by innovation in teaching practices, especially through digital tools, and who wanted to share. We just wanted to share. And I remember that we discussed quite a lot with those 9 or 10 colleagues about how we could share such kind of experiences with our community. And we said, okay, let's formalize a faculty development initiative. So at first it was very, it was a sort of very small community of practice. And then, as you will have seen, grew up quite significantly. So just to explain how this region-wide faculty development initiative is working, it's based on faculty development training centers. So we decided from the very beginning to invest some money to settle such kind of, we could call that active learning classrooms, basically. It's pretty innovative. We always try to use furnishing and equipment that may allow a lot of innovative practices, of course, because this is the thing that we want to foster, definitely. So we decided to invest in such kind of training center. So this is result of partnerships that we have with our members, our university members, and we co-fund such kind of facilities. So this is one of the last that we opened 2 years ago. Such kind of collaborative tables used for group working activities. You can have a screen sharing between the tables, or once again this one, which is almost on the same architecture. So we have, historically speaking, we had 7 of these training centers. They are spread all across the Paris area. We wanted to put them as close as possible to our members, so we spread it in the entire region. And this is the opportunity for me to mention that since the very beginning, all those faculty development sessions were organized in those faculty development centers, meaning that they were face-to-face and 100% face-to-face. So we could say, okay, you are a digital university, it's 100% face-to-face. And if you would ask me the questions, I would say, yeah, that's perfectly right. That's perfectly right. And actually, we asked this very same question to our own attendees many, many times, asking, okay, would you agree to switch some of our sessions remotely, distance, instead of meeting in our training centers? And the answer was always the same. It was no. We feel more comfortable, even though we have to take the subway to move to another university where the training center is located. We feel more comfortable to have the speaker facing us, and maybe being able to help us directly on our computer if we need so. So once again, it was a request from our attendees to say, okay, let's keep it face-to-face. And we kept face-to-face using those training centers. The second key thing that this faculty development initiative is relying on is a website. So this a very quick screencast that I realized, so don't try to read because it's in French, but actually this website is showcasing the entire program. So this is actually the very true program that we have for the next months that you may see. And for each session, we have all the description, the requirements, and actually you can, as an attendee, you can directly register yourself on that very website. So actually on that initiative, I have a second people working with me. She couldn't attend this morning because it's a little bit early for her in France, but her name is Stephen Selly, and I wanted to really to mention her contribution to this initiative, and especially by running this website. And actually this website has, I think, 3 key assets that were really the reasons of his success. First, single sign-on. What does it mean? It means that when all faculties or staffs of any universities in Paris want to access this website and register themselves for a training session, they use the same login and password that they usually use in their own university. There is nothing more to keep a second login, a second password. It's a little bit annoying. Sometimes you lose them. No, it's a very same login and password. So this is basically a centralized authentication system. So single sign-on, first thing. Second thing is that the program of our own session is completely integrated in the faculty development, in the staff development program of our universities, which means that in any universities of Paris area, you don't have the faculty development program of the university and beside the faculty development program of the Île-de-France Digital University, sorry. Everything is the same. And actually all our universities on purpose decided to integrate our offer, our training offer in their own faculty or staff development offer. So it's completely integrated. Third, it's completely paperless, meaning that when a staff or a faculty want to register on a development session, he or she's going through this website. There is no paper, no stamp, anything. It's just you fill the form, and actually the website is sending the request to the people in the university who's in charge of this faculty or this staff, and through a back office, the service of the university can confirm the registration. So it's completely paperless. So 3 key assets: single sign-on, completely integrated in the programs of the universities, and paperless. Third, in that all normal, of course, I have to discuss about the sessions themselves. And the sessions themselves, I would like to mention 2 things. The first is that we always try to apply a synergy between the digital tool and the practice. What do I mean by that? Let me give you a couple of examples. There is one of our older session, and maybe a most popular session, which deals with the way to design slideshows. We all have to create slideshows for our professional activities every day, or at least every week. And so we have this session to help the faculties to design their slideshow for their lectures. So the way we apply this synergy between the digital tool and the practice in that case is the following one. We say to the faculty, okay, you can choose any slideshow tool you want to use. So I gave here a few examples. That might be more, but at least we have those ones: PowerPoint, Keynote, Google Slides, or Prezi. And actually the faculties come to us and say, okay, I want to follow the next Keynote workshop or the next Prezi workshop. Say, okay, we have workshop for that. We have training sessions for that. So you're going to spend first step, which is gonna the first step will be to learn how to use the tool itself. But we will systematically propose to the very same attendees to follow a second session, which will be related to the teaching practice itself. And in that case, it's going to be called Visual Design Principle of the Slideshow for the pedagogical activities. Okay, so we always have the tool on one side and the practice on the other side. And for a huge majority of our faculty development training offer,
のトレーニング、この2つの
Another example, we have sessions about video editing. Okay, and some faculties may come to us and say, okay, we would like to learn how to first record very simple video and then edit them to make something suitable for a lecture. Okay, we're going to teach them such kind of things, but after that, they're going to have a second session, which will be, for instance, the production of pedagogical screencasts. So meaning pedagogical video recordings, and especially in the times we're going through right now, it's very relevant. So once again, the tool on one side and the teaching practices, pedagogical practices on the other side. So this is absolutely systematic, and it's the first key thing about our sessions. Second key thing is that we wanted to keep them short. So the typical duration of those workshops, of those sessions, is from 2 to 3 hours, never more than 3 hours. We tried, actually, many years ago, we tried to do that on 1 day or 2 days or such kind of things. And it was very difficult to keep the attendees for such duration, such a long time. So we decided to shrink on purpose and to make it fit in 2 or 3 hours for each of the topics that we cover. To give you some numbers, to finish that introduction about the old normal, to give you some numbers. So once again, this initiative is existing since 2009, and we registered something like 11,000 people since then. We scheduled more than 1,000 sessions, 100 topics approximately, so mixing the tools and the practices, as I just said. And those attendees were coming approximately from 45 institutions. So these are the numbers, the stats recorded since 2009. I would like to mention that among those 45 institutions, and this is in some way one of the collaboration we had with the GFD at the University of Tokyo, we had some international cooperations, meaning that those faculty development sessions have been requested, or we had contacts about organizing them in Canada, USA, Japan, of course, Singapore, and Australia. So it has international audience as well, even though the natural landscape is the Parisian one, but it has an international audience. So this was the old normal. And this was the old normal up to March 2020. And then, of course, we switched to the response we had to give to the pandemic. So in March 2020, the situation in France was the following one. From we had first to think about the continuity plan. Continuity plan in the sense that in March 2020 in France we had the first lockdown, which was a very hard lockdown. The first one was very, very tough, very, very hard during, if I remember well, 7 or 8 weeks. And at that time, you remember that I said that 100% of our faculty development sessions were given face-to-face. So of course, we had a huge problem regarding this. As any other activities in the universities, we had this problem to know what shall we do with our faculty development session. And so we thought about a continuity plan. So to give you a broad view of how we did that, this is the calendar. On March 17, there was the announcement of the lockdown in France, and the announcement that all universities would shut down for face-to-face activities. At that time, basically, we had 3 solutions for our faculty development initiative. The first one was to stop it. So, okay, we stop and we wait that the lockdown is over. We wait to be able to be back on face-to-face to restart exactly like we did before. That was the first solution. Of course, it wasn't acceptable, neither for us, neither for our usual attendees, because at the same time, the needs were growing for faculty development. Of course, this was definitely not a suitable solution. The second one was to say, okay, we take our usual sessions and we just deliver them by video conferencing. We take exactly the same contents than usual, the contents that we were using for face-to-face, and we deliver them by video conferencing. And we said that might be not suitable neither, because contents not designed to be delivered by video conferencing usually doesn't work so well by video conferencing. This is certainly a discussion that we're going to have later, but at least I do think so. So very quickly, we decided to apply the third solution, which was to say, okay, let's try to rebuild something. Let's try to rebuild the faculty development program, especially designed for video conferencing. And this is the decision that we took very quickly. So 1 week after the announcement of the lockdown, we began with my colleague Tiffen some tests of technical and pedagogical solutions. Technically speaking, it wasn't very complicated because think you will agree with me that nowadays getting a good video conferencing system, something that is working properly, it's not a problem anymore. Not at all. We even have choice for that. So technically speaking, there was no problem. But once again, as I quickly mentioned just before, the question was more on the pedagogical point of view, because we didn't want just to take contents that were usually delivered face-to-face and switch them distance by video conferencing. So we really thought a lot and we really worked a lot about the readaptation of the contents that we had to fit in the video conferencing format. So we worked on that. And a little bit more than 1 week later, we were able to make a first live test. So just 2 weeks after the announcement of the lockdown, 1 week after our first test, we were able to do a first live test with real attendees of a session delivered in video conferencing. It was pretty successful. And at that time, considering the already existing faculty development program that we had, the program of our sessions, we gave a forecast, which was that we could switch approximately 25% of this program in that new video conferencing format. Okay, that was the situation 2 weeks after the announcement of the lockdown. So we continued to work quite a lot during all of the April, and because we wanted to, after those 2 weeks of preparation, we wanted to officially launch our video conferencing version of our faculty development initiative in May. So we decided to work during April. There were some usual holidays for universities at that time, so it was a good timing to work on such kind of thing, to prepare all that we needed to prepare. And just before May, April 28th, we published our new program, so 100% by video conferencing. And the good surprise is that after 1 month of work, finally, we could switch 60% of the old face-to-face program to the new video conferencing format, okay? And so we started I would say the new phase on that base. So let's move to May, June, and July, and I will give you some numbers. So first, we decided on the first step, we decided to schedule 21 sessions. We had something like 170 seats, if I may say so, of capacity, and it was covering 15 topics. So the charts that you're going to see from now are the real ones. The increasing of number is the real increasing of number as we're recording it. So you may see that the response was huge. In less than 1 week, we were almost full on those 21 sessions, almost full in maybe 1 week, 10 days approximately. So very quickly, on May 13th, 2 weeks later, we decided of the first extension of the program. We upgraded to 30 sessions, 232 seats, 16 topics. Once again, we had a huge response. June 3rd, we decided a second extension of the program to run up to the summer holidays, and we increased the number of sessions up to 35, 264 seats, 17 topics, and once again, the response was, as you may see, very important. It got full very, very quickly. So that was our continuity plan. This is what we did during the lockdown, and right after the lockdown. Actually, the lockdown finished on May 11th in France, but reopening of the university actually occurred only in September. So face-to-face was impossible in any case up to September. So this is what we did during the lockdown and the post-lockdown up to the summer holidays. To give you some numbers about that, during those 3 months, approximately, 3 months, 3.5 months, we registered 285 attendees. We scheduled, as you may see, 35 sessions, and they were coming, those people, from 10 universities. So that was, I think, a pretty good start. But of course, the question was to ask ourselves very quickly, what shall we do as a next step? September 2020, so as you may know, in Western, this is the beginning of the university year, the academic year. It's September, October, not April. There was no lockdown anymore, but the reopening of the universities for face-to-face activities was very, very progressive, and we knew that it would be very progressive during many months after that. We had actually a second lockdown in France from October. At that time in September, we didn't know yet, but we had a second lockdown in October. So considering the good experience that we had from the continuity plan, we said, okay, how can we make that plan sustainable? Let's move to sustainability. And to do so, we decided to make some changes on the way to design our program, our session program. Until then, actually, it was a la carte mode, meaning that people just could pick up in our program the session they want to follow, and they just follow those very sessions. The thing we decided to do for September 2020, and because we knew that the needs coming from the faculties were still very, very important, we decided to create a bundle of training sessions, something that would be very easy to read, very easy to understand, and that would cover most of the needs that any faculty could have to face the new way to deliver teaching. So that bundle actually was structured on three main topics. The first one is concept and fundamentals. So as you may see, we explain to the faculties the constraints, but also the benefits of online and hybrid teaching. We explain them the concept of learning capsules, so small teaching units with a lot of different concepts inside, and how to run online assessments. So these are concepts and fundamental, three modules. Then we talk about production of contents. Then we're gonna explain to the faculties how to design efficient slideshows for their lectures, online lectures, how they could produce some screencasts, video recording of the screen, how they could produce real videos for the people who need to have real videos. We're going to discuss about the tools for interactivity, tools and methods for interactivity with the students when they're online. And we're going to discuss about the good way to use the collaboration platforms and different tools that we have for the
複
collaboration.
数のツールの使い方、特に非対称、アシンクロナスな使い方などが入っていて、ティーチングアクティビティそのままです。教え方、教授法、先にも紹介した概念、これをミックスして授業活
And the last one was the articulation with the physical spaces, maybe forecasting when those faculty could go at least partially back on the campus to have some of their classes face-to-face. So this is the package, this is the bundle, the course basically that we designed and that we proposed on September 2020. We decided to propose that as a sequence. And basically from September to January, we proposed it entirely 3 times. Next week, actually, we're going to have the 2 last sessions of the 3rd iteration of that course that are scheduled. So 3 times, and of course, it's already scheduled for the new semester, for the spring semester. But that was basically the way we made our faculty development proposal for this sustainability plan from September. So that was alongside our already existing offers. So people, they still could do choose a la carte way. They say, okay, I'm gonna pick up that session, this session, this session. But our first proposal was to say, okay, please keep in mind we have this course, and if you follow it, basically you should have all the notions that you need to run your teaching activities in a distance way. Let's go back to the stats. These were the stats that we had after the continuity plan from March to July. I just mentioned you. So how did it evolve after the introduction of that package course that I just presented to you? From September 2020, we moved to a little bit less than 800 registrations we scheduled 85 sessions and 17 universities were involved in that initiative. So these are the stats that we had a few days ago, actually, the last counting few days ago. So once again, the response was absolutely huge in number of people attending, absolutely huge. So at the end of 2020, basically, we were able to say that there was a historical system that was 100% face-to-face that was running from 2009 to 2019 that has been switched 90% remote in 2020. And that switch has been done basically in 1 month. Why do I say 90% remote and not 100% remote? Just because actually in 2020, in January and February, before the lockdown, we were running our usual face-to-face sessions. So it's all the rest, for the rest of the year, it was entirely remotely provided, delivered. Next, beyond those numbers, this is a quantitative approach of the topic, but of course, when you induce such kind of change, it's very interesting to have qualitative feedbacks from the people. And especially because our system was delivered in a radically different way than historically. We always had very nice appreciations from the faculties attending our training session when they were face-to-face, but we wanted to know if beyond the need, beyond the emergency, the things we were proposing to our colleagues were received in the same positive way than before. So we conducted systematic assessments, and these are the numbers that we got. First, we were asking to the people, does it basically answer to your needs? And 80% of the people said yes. Your program, and especially the course that you bundled from September 20, is a good response to the need that we have in the switch to distance learning we have to face because of the pandemic. Second, what is your appreciation of the contents? 83% of the people said that it was good or very good. Appreciation of the speaker, 89%. So these are questions that we were already asking to our attendees in the old normal when we were conducting face-to-face session. But that time we added one more question. And that one more question was, what do you think of the new format that we provided you, the video conferencing format? And that was, of course, extremely significant for us. And the answer was 96% of the people said that it was positive or very positive. So this is something extremely important. And I can tell you that after having a lot of discussions with our attendees, it was very interesting to see the change, the evolution of the mindsets. What I want to say by that is at the beginning, when we had faculties coming to our video conferencing session for the first time, we felt that they had to. They had to because there was an emergency context. They had to get skills to be very quickly operational for distance teaching, but they were not so positive about the video conferencing itself. What they said for most of them was that, okay, we have to do so because there is no choice, but we don't believe that video conferencing could be a very efficient way to teach. And when I'm telling you that there was a huge mindset shifting, is that more recently, when I was discussing with the very same people, they say, now we understood that finally, indeed, there are constraints for video conferencing, but there are also a lot of benefits and a lot of opportunities. And maybe the way
と
we made
いろいろな人が言っています。ビデオカンファレンスのセッションの提供、自分で行うこと。
appreciation, I would like to focus on some key points. The first one is about the way we deliver our video conferencing sessions. As I told you several times already, we didn't want to take contents that were first designed for face-to-face session and just switch them and give them in video conferencing. It doesn't work, and I'm sure that all of you would agree with me. So in the redesign, the systematic redesign that we applied to our content to fit to the video conferencing, there was one first key thing, which is that there is never more than 10 minutes in which attendees are doing nothing. So at least once every 10 minutes, there is a questions, there is a poll, there is an activity. Never more than 10 minutes without having nothing to do for the attendees. That was the first thing. The second thing is that we wanted to create a way to interact with the attendees, which would be very seamless. And you, such as I do, are experiencing video conferencing every day nowadays. And you know that sometimes when you want to interact with someone, it can be, if I could say in Japanese, mendokusai. The people facing you have to turn on the microphone. You have to wait 3 or 4 seconds that the microphone is on and say, can you hear me? Yes, I can hear. Okay, now you can ask your question. And basically you lost 10 seconds. And those 10 seconds, they're very meaningful in the way you deliver your session, because it's a cut in the rhythm, I think. So we decided to think about a way to keep it very seamless. And this is the way we applied. We settled something that we called asymmetric interactive video conferencing. What does it mean? It means that basically the speaker, we have two screens facing him. The first one for the video conferencing and the screen sharing. The second one only for a chat window. And the way that speaker will interact with the attendee is the following one. He or she will deliver the course by voice and video, of course, like any video conferencing system. But the attendee will interact with the speaker only by chat, at least for a first level. So this is the reason why there is the second screen on the speaker side only for the chat. And basically, the speaker just had to do a double connection. He or she has two devices, a laptop or a computer or desktop computer, and a second screen that can be only a smartphone. The second screen, the chat window, could be only on the smartphone. And there is a double connection on the video conferencing system. And actually, for instance, when I'm delivering such kind of things, this is exactly what I have now facing me. I have my video conferencing screen on my laptop, and I have an iPad in which I have the chat. Okay, so proposing to the attendees to interact with us by chatting first was really a key to keep it very, very seamless. First, because they don't feel shy or hazukashi to ask a question first, and that is very important. And second, because it's instant. So after that, the only challenge is for the speaker to always get an eye on the second screen to see if there is new questions, but otherwise it keeps the session super, super seamless. And this is one of the explanations why we have this appreciation of 96% of good or very good opinions of the way we deliver our sessions today. And to give you some testimonies, they really reflect what I just said. They say interacting is very efficient. We can ask a maximum of questions. It's very interactive, seamless, no loss of time. So really asking them to interact with us first by chat was really a key. And of course, it doesn't avoid the people to take the microphone if we need to extend the discussion and to go deeper to the topic that is the questions one. But first level of interaction is going to be by chat, and it's very, very efficient. So this is what we did during the pandemic's response, and actually we are still in. So now let's discuss about future and what would be the new normal, not today's new normal, but the upcoming new normal, the post-COVID.
知りませんけれども、ポストコロナのニューノーマルはどうなるのかということをお話ししたいと思います。私はエジュコーズに関わっているということをご存知。
That is scheduled every year in the US, which is known to be the major conference for digital in higher education, especially for teaching and learning purposes. And during the last conference, which was of course online last October, there was what they call a top IT issue, which is published annually. And the last one was mentioning 3 scenarios that I would like to see with you. The first one is called restore, meaning that the post-pandemic would be actually like like the previous era. We just would go back to the old system. They call that restore. Second one is evolve, meaning that we would keep some lessons that we got during the COVID responses to implement them in a sustainable way. And the third one is transform, meaning that we would remove most of the practices that we had before the COVID to keep, for most of them, the ones we had during the pandemic response. So I think this is pretty interesting. At the EDUCOS conference, that was discussed maybe on a purely IT point of view, but we certainly can have the same discussions for teaching and learning practices. And on my point of view, and this will be certainly the thing that we're going to discuss in a couple of minutes, but okay, restore, once again, going back to the previous situation, I do think that it would be a little bit a pity because we all spend a lot of energy or also a lot of money to react to the pandemic, to try to create new things. And I think it would be very pretty bad actually to remove that, to dispose that, to go back simply to the previous situation. Evolve and transform. I would certainly more be focusing on those scenarios, but of course we have to think about the trigger. Will we keep only few things, the evolve scenario, few things from the pandemic response to keep them and make them sustainable, or will we change most of the things that we had before? So it's a question of trigger between evolve and transform. We have to think, and certainly it's going to be different among different institutions, but I do think that we will certainly be between those two scenarios. Why do I would like to focus on 4 key points that made me think that we should be between the evolve and the transform scenarios. First one is the assessment and the lessons that we had from the pandemic. Pros and cons. And this is something that we did beyond the numbers that I show you, and definitely I do think that are positive numbers, but we really wanted to have a critical approach on what we did and what we still do, and in a very objective way to say, okay, what are the cons, what are the pros? So first, in the cons, there could be that very legitimate question of the technical issues. What I can tell you is that now is the feedback of, as I told you, 800 registrations on video conferencing sessions. We had less than 20 people, 20 attendees that had problems to connect. So 20 on 800, if my arithmetic is right, is 2.5%. So it's, yeah, it's very, very small. It's negligible. So it seems that the technical issue is not an issue, basically. Second, incompatibilities. I'm not talking about technical incompatibilities, but pedagogical incompatibilities. You may remember that I told you that when we started our continuity plan, first we were thinking to switch 25% of our face-to-face program to video conferencing. Finally, we did 60, and now we are approximately at 80, 85. But we still do have 15 or 20% of our face-to-face sessions that we couldn't deliver in a video conferencing way as efficiently as we would like to. And so considering this, we decided not to schedule them. So you may face such kind of problems with very specific topic, with very specific practices. For instance, one of our session is related to my research topic, which is the learning spaces, the physical learning spaces. And one of our faculty development session is to teach to the faculties how to use active classrooms. So of course, when you do that, it's better to do that in a real active learning classrooms. And when that are incompatible with video conferencing. And this is the second potential cons with the technical issues. Let's now move to the pros. First, interactivity. And definitely considering the feedbacks we got, considering the numbers we got, the assessment we got, it's clearly now understood as a benefit from the video conferencing. And once again, it was a huge mindset shifting to say, okay, video conferencing, it's boring, it's not very convenient. And now most of our people, they say, no, there is a huge benefit of this, especially through the interactivity. But the biggest benefit, on my point of view, is the agility. Why do I mean by agility? Let me go back on the course I was mentioning before. So this is the typical course. Agility means that by using video conferencing sessions, we were able to have a very quick response for custom needs. Why do I mean? I mean that, for instance, if in the module number 2, the learning capsules, people would like to go farther than beyond the discussion during the 3 hours of the sessions.
3時間より先の話をしたいのであれば、急いでここで Q&A とかワークショップとか挿入することができるんです。予定はしていなかったけれども、ビデオ会議であるから何も部屋
It doesn't imply to move by subway or by train. We said, okay, and the situation I'm going to give you is real. Okay, on the Wednesday, we had the session, the module number 2 session. The people said, we would like to discuss more. We would like to make some workshop. The Friday, 2 days later, we could organize them. And this is thanks to the video conferencing. So it's very agile. Same thing for the slideshow design. When I was giving that session, sometimes people were saying, this is very interesting, but now what I would like to do is work with you on my own slideshows to correct them on the base of the things that you explained us. I say, okay, let's meet tomorrow at lunchtime and let's do some workshops. So this is possible thanks to the video conference. Okay. Agility, very, very important. Once again, I'm not explaining that everything is better by distance learning. Many of you, when I'm watching the attendees list of today, many of you know my interest and maybe my love for the innovative physical learning spaces, but we have to admit that video conferencing and distance may have some benefits, significant benefits, and these are some of them. So assessment and lessons. Second, we maybe have to reconsider the balance between distance and face-to-face. Before the pandemic, the distance for most of us, it was the exception, and face-to-face, it was the majority. Okay, now it's completely the opposite, but what will it be in the future? That maybe we just reconsider the way and the reasons why we are organizing face-to-face sessions. Maybe we should ask ourselves, is it relevant to ask my students to come on the campus right now, because there is a benefit to see them face-to-face rather than video conferencing, and especially considering the benefits of the video conferencing I just mentioned. So for that, and this is the connection I would like to do with the very topic which has my interest for my research, the learning spaces, when you have active learning classrooms such as this one, this is in Monash University in Melbourne. When you have active learning classroom that like the Mirais, this is in Kyushu Institute of Technology in Iizuka. At University of Tokyo, you have the wonderful CALS at Komaba campus. But you also have new generation of libraries and learning commons. You have this one, Nanyang University in Singapore. You have the North Carolina State University in Raleigh, USA. You have these very nice learning commons in Osaka International University, very close to me right now. And you have this open space building on the campus of Hakodate, future University of Hakodate. So these are spaces that are giving a lot of possibilities, a lot of opportunities to change the way we deliver the face-to-face sessions. So maybe we just have to think about, okay, is it relevant to ask the students to come on the campus? And why will I do more face-to-face that I couldn't do remotely by video conferencing? And using such kind of spaces to give more relevancy to face-to-face sessions might be a way to consider for us. Also because now, of course, and this is something that we are getting used to, we have to think about synchronous and asynchronous teaching scenarios. I would like to give you an example of that. Let's imagine that we have a sequence of 5 steps, okay, 5 meetings with the students. And some of them will be synchronous, some of them will be asynchronous. So those 5 steps, we could say, okay, the first one is going to be synchronous, face-to-face or remotely. We're going to give a lecture using slideshow. So, okay, it's a lecture and I'm using slideshow as teacher, as a faculty. The second step, of this pedagogical scenario will be, okay, let's ask the students to work in an asynchronous way, so by themselves in autonomy. Now at home using collaborative tools, and I hope soon back to the campus by using Learning Commons Learning Center or active learning classrooms. They can work on documents, on screencasts, video recordings, on mind mapping, such kind of tools. Let's go back then to synchronous step by video conferencing this time, let's say, using a question form and using a mind mapping. Next step, once again, asynchronous. The students will work by themselves in autonomy, documents, screencasting, and the last session will be a final lecture to close that chapter. Okay, so this is a kind of thing that we are implementing right now at the COVID era that we could keep after that, and that may use this mix of video conferencing in an efficient way and face-to-face in a relevant way. And finally, of course, we have today the contribution of the tools, the evolution of the tools for those synchronous, asynchronous activities, the collaborative tools. I would like to give you just a glimpse of one that I'm using on a daily basis. Clearly, I'm using it every day, which is the mind mapping. And mind mapping to collaborate in a synchronous or asynchronous way with your students, or to work on that in faculty development session is absolutely great, because basically you can share a map, a mind map like this, and say, okay, the collaboration will work on that basis. That branch is going to be for Johnny and Isabel. Isabel will also work on that sub branch over there. Emma, she will be in charge of this, and Ralph, he will be over there. And we can work synchronously or asynchronously on that map. And this is a perfect tool to support the activities I was mentioning just before. So definitely the technology is not a problem anymore, and we have all the tools we need to do so. So 4 key things, I think, 4 learnings that we have now from the pandemic that we could take care of for the way to consider the post-COVID era. And basically, and this is going to be my final word, anywhere in the world, we have resistance facing the change everywhere. In Japan, in France, everywhere. And,
もう変化に直面しています。フランスも日本もです。日本でも前例なしということをおっしゃっていると聞きました。今までやったことがないことをやっている。コロナのために
beyond the Zenrei Nashi and going beyond the resistance to the change. We had no choice. We had no choice. So in that sense, because we had no choice, and it's also because we discovered that finally the things we used to face the pandemic, the video conferencing and all the collaborative tools that we may use now, they are more than just an emergency response. It might be something sustainable, and maybe it's the best opportunity we ever had to change our teaching and learning practices. And that might be maybe a good way to open the discussion that's going to follow. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, John. That was really interesting, very stimulating, and very impressive. I mean, how quickly you were able to respond to these challenges, how deeply you were able to anticipate and then to come up with further responses, innovative answers, and that was indeed a lesson or a range of lessons. I'm sure we will be back to some of your slides during the discussion. I forgot to say at the beginning that we will have no less than 45 minutes for the discussion. So quite plenty of time. So do not hesitate to ask your question in the language you're most familiar with. Again, we have these interpretations, so do not hesitate to ask your question in Japanese if you feel more comfortable doing so. We will still use this traditional way to interact, huh? John. We won't use the chat or the Q&A answer button, but so just raise your hand and please ask your question. Thank you.
Hi, John. Good to see you. As you're aware, I'm very much interested in these like new generation of spaces, learning spaces. And I guess the question for me is, with the amount of investment in these amazing buildings, what happens to them now? They're just going to be like ghost rooms. Do you know what I mean? What does that mean for all the millions of dollars that are being spent on these rooms and spaces?
Actually, of course, it's not, at the first look, it might not be the best period to ask fundings to create such kind of new physical spaces. Definitely not. But myself discussing with some stakeholders, and I had a discussion yesterday morning with a stakeholder in Australia, actually, Naomi. We were discussing about a new building that is about to be started, and I think that some of them are very sensitive to the question I was raising before, which is why will we ask our students to go back to the campus? Why will it be better for them to go back on the campus? And having such kind of facilities definitely is one of the answers, because you know, such as I do, that such kind of active learning classrooms, such kind of learning commons, they can support practices that we couldn't do in classical facilities. So of course, it's an investment that might not be so obvious at the first look now, but definitely for people, stakeholders that are a little bit forward looking and keeping in mind that maybe the post-COVID era will definitely not the restore scenario going back to the previous one. They say it might be a good way to invest on this, because in the new balance of distance and face-to-face learning, it's going to be a huge asset.
Yeah, I remember seeing a really great quote about this education, like this what's the word, when you're replacing bricks and mortar with clicks and something. That's basically what the post-COVID higher education could be looking like.
Definitely.
Thank you, Naomi. We have another question. John, can you see the question in the chat? Also, what is the percentage of the entire workforce of all universities in Paris that this number represents? What are you?
Actually, to give you a number, in Paris area, we have something like 50,000 faculties and staffs. 50,000 faculties and staffs, approximately.
Any other question? John, is it possible for you to go back to your slides?
Of course.
To your PowerPoint. So.
I have another question, John.
Yeah, please, Naomi. Yeah.
Okay, so look, I'm sure everyone here has experienced this. Certainly, I have. Is this sense of this year? I don't know if it's because of the stresses and the changes, but there was some stuff that the students just did not get, and that I'm aware that I've not had that problem with understanding or getting it in face-to-face. So there was a sense that certain concepts or skills I was trying to teach somehow landed better in a face-to-face environment, because if nothing else, the students had each other just quickly to turn to and go, to confer. So there's some things that students just were not getting. And it made me start thinking about, and I've done, this is also an area of research about, I'm interested in embodied learning. And I heard this really wonderful quote that the environment is the third teacher, is a third pedagogy. So you've got content, teacher, and environment. So pedagogically, online environment as a teacher, a lot gets lost. I do feel that. And, in a way, students are just looking at shapes on a screen, basically. So, this is a concern for me about what they're actually learning.
I remember by listening to you, I think he's with us today. I see his name in the attendees. I have my good friend Sugimori Sensei from Kanazawa, who actually we collaborate since a long time together, and I'm sure he's smiling behind the screen because he knows what I'm gonna say. A few years ago, he told me, you know, I think there is a new concept that we should integrate. We have the software, we have the hardware, and there is the humanware. And basically, but Kimikazu, if you want to take the microphone to say more about that,
Yeah.
Of course, please go ahead. Go ahead. I don't want to speak for you, please. Kimikazu, if you want.
You mean the true concept of new normal of teaching and learning?
Right. Right.
Yeah. Today, nowadays, we are faced on the completely dynamic paradigm shift. We are able to meet via display, digital tools. However, the true learning is human communication and liberal arts, or as how can I say, data literacy or numerical or digital literacy is important. However, human communication is base, all of base. So we should focus on the human literacy or humanware. So hardware and software is of course important. However, how to use, how to communicate, how to implement or how to expand human communication or human relationship interaction. So that's we are changed to the developing the human network or humanware, how to communicate or how to use these literacy. So that's the in my opinion, it's a I mean, it's okay. The any tool, any idea, any new tool can expand our human communication. So that's so excuse me. I cannot. I cannot explain in English correctly.
Maybe Kimikazu, you should switch in Japanese because we have the translator. So please switch to Japanese if you want. And we can,
okay.
Yeah, we have the translator. I think Isabel, we still have the translator, right?
Yes, yeah. Please go ahead. If you want to ask your question or to draw a comment in Japanese, please go ahead. We have this interpretation function, so.
Okay. じゃあ、私も日本語に切り替えますね。
Please allow me to speak in Japanese then. This is the English translation. I will continue in Japanese. The hardware and the software, both of them are required and understood. But what is called the human aware, how the software and the hardware can be utilized to connect the human and the human. That is what is necessary. So using Zoom and communication through display, there are some difficulties, but because of this environment, we have to develop and use the body, the embodiment with the digital tool. We have to enable human-to-human communication. These are the challenges that we have to overcome. John, have I made myself better understood?
For me, perfectly. So yeah, Naomi, to go back to your question. So if your question is what kind of notions will be easier to explain in a distance learning, in a face-to-face learning rather than distance, I think this was your initial question. Of course, I think it's difficult to give a unique answer to such kind of question for all disciplines, but it's always a question of trigger. What I'm just saying is that overall the trigger between distance learning and face-to-face learning might change in a sustainable way for the future, regardless the disciplines, and for each discipline the trigger might be in different place, but it's going to be different than the ones it had before.
Yes, please go ahead. Johnny and then Kumiko wants to ask a question. So please, Johnny, go ahead and then Kumiko. Johnny, sorry, we can't hear you, or it's not.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now it's okay.
It's my crazy webcam. It leaves the camera on and switches the microphone off. I have to unplug it. Just another example of little irritating digital things. Sorry. So what I was saying was, John, thanks. I very much enjoyed your presentation. It was extremely enlightening. This will be a little bit drawn out question. There's something I'm interested in getting to this idea of, you know, what makes learning experiences important in face-to-face and when you're online, and what do we risk losing and what do we risk gaining, and you know, are there dangers of losing things without realizing it early on and then making it difficult to go back. And I was just remembering a quotation from Stephen Fry. I'm sure many of you know Stephen Fry, who in one of his autobiographies, he's talking about his time when he was a student at Cambridge, and his point is that during that time, actually the formal education was essentially of no interest, and everything important that he learned was learned in his informal interactions and communications and discussions and things with other students. And it was the students teaching them each other that was actually by far the more important part of the experience. And this brings this to mind here. And so one, I'm kind of want to ask you if you think that there are dangers associated with, you know, placing too much of our future faith in digital in that sense. But perhaps the more pertinent question that I want to ask is related to this, and that is, you've provided a kind of excellent example of how to do it right, you know, and you yourself and your team are experts in using these technologies in an educational context and using them well. And it's very clear that when you use online tools and you use them properly and you place pedagogy at the center, then the results can be excellent, I think. But my fear is that when you've got less good teaching in the classroom, does it get substantially worse online? Because you've not got any of that other stuff. You haven't got the students talking about it after class. You haven't got any of the things that kind of make amends for the inadequacies in the teaching. And so the question I kind of wanted to ask is, you know, does digital only work when you really know what you're doing, or can it be an all-over replacement for face-to-face? So sorry, two very difficult and long questions. But
no, but Johnny, of course, this is the central question. And once again, among the things that I explained before, I just said that video conferencing and distance teaching might not be as bad as many people thought before the COVID.
That's certainly true. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But I would certainly not say that the future should be 95% of distance learning and just 5% face-to-face. Not at all. I'm just saying that the trigger between the two of them would change. That's it. And for many activities, and you remember, Johnny, the discussions that we had about the CALS, especially for many of the activities, including active learning or flipped classroom, such kind of things. So we will. It's pretty obvious to keep the physical learning spaces, of course, but maybe we can use them in a different way. What I want to say is that, once again, the people who know me, they know my focus on the learning commons, on the informal learning spaces, especially. Until 2020, many universities were having learning commons, but I felt that they had such kind of facilities because all other universities had so. And they say, okay, it's for active learning, but when you were asking, okay, but please tell me about the active learning practices that are conducting in the learning commons, they couldn't tell me much more than there is active learning. So right now, maybe it's good, right now, in the close future, let's hope so, it's gonna be a nice opportunity to say, okay, we have those learning commons, and instead of saying, declare that it's for active learning, include them in the teaching sequence and to say, okay, in the asynchronous step that I was mentioning just before, please gather at the learning commons and do your group working activities there. That's it. So this is a way to move the trigger by taking benefits of facilities that in some way, in some times are already existing on the campuses actually. So once again, it's always a question of trigger, I think.
Just a sort of final comment. One fear that I have is that, you know, as long as the power for this remains in the hands of the educators, then it's used for good. But there are so many ways in which online teaching can be cost-cutting and easier to manage for administrators. And I fear for the one-way street of where we slide down this path to simplifying everything, doing it this way, and we lose and we can't get back to what we had before. So that's just my sort of concern that lies in this. Okay,
that's true.
thanks.
That's true. That's true. I think we had Kumiko, Isabel, I think after that. Huh?
Hey, John.
Hi, Kumiko.
It was very nice talk as always. It's very aesthetically pleasing and nice and inspiring. My question relates to the previous two questions in the sense that I think regardless of we use technology or not using technology, I think what we want to move, the direction we want to move is that active learning and more student-centered learning, and that's we could do either face-to-face or technology-mediated learning, and you know, if the teacher's image of a teaching is just giving lecture, if they use technology, they also do the same thing using technology, either better or worse. I think this this opportunity at this moment we have is that actually transforming teaching learning in a way that we can engage student more. And the question I have is that did you, if you have any trick to actually change the mindset of teachers from you know, teacher-centered, lecture-oriented teaching to more student-centered, activity-based, as you said, after 10 minutes of showing something or doing video, you give some activity. I think it's a good idea. And that's, I think, even, it's very simple, but I think it works very nicely. And so what do you think is a trick to change teachers' mindset from that, the lecture-oriented approach to more student-centered approach?
Of course, this is a very interesting question, Kumiko, thank you. But I would like to mention that this is one of our core, in the core of the philosophy that we applied when we designed this faculty development initiative since 2009. We wanted to put the faculties in a position of students to understand what the students are experiencing, basically. So for instance, I was mentioning that we have some of those sessions when they are delivered face-to-face, which are to explain how to use active learning classrooms. It's very interesting to show to the teachers acting as students, okay, look, the activities that you could do or not do, and this is the impact that it's going to have on your engagement in the class, because this is the real environment. You are seated in a position of students, or you are living the experience of a student. And basically, I would like to say that in the video conferencing, it's been exactly the same time. It's the same thing all the time. And we said to the teachers, okay, now you're in a faculty development session. I'm going to smile by saying that, but I'm harassing you every 10 minutes by asking questions. I will not let you doing nothing during more than 10 minutes. And I always say that at the beginning of my sessions. On purpose, I say, please keep in mind that you will not be able to sleep behind your screen, because I also have the list of attendees. And of course, those sessions, one of the advantages that they have is that for a limited number of attendees, we have 8, 10, 12, sometimes 15 people. So it's very easy to say, okay, Naomi, I saw that you didn't react since 30 minutes. So, and I do that all the time. I do that all the time. Beyond the asking questions or doing activities every 10 minutes, if I see someone who didn't react since a lot of time, I say, okay, you didn't ask anything. Everything is okay. Please say something. And I think that putting the teachers in this position to experience what it is to attend a video conferencing in which you are challenged might be a good way to change the mindset as well. This is what the people I'm talking to, my ex-attendees, this is what they told me, Kumiko. Definitely, this is one of the reasons why they had this, as you said, this mindset shifting from video conferencing is something we have to do because we have no choice to it's something that might be engaging as well because they experience that as students, basically.
Thank you. That's wonderful.
It's interesting to see that the discussion is going on also in
the chat. Yeah. And I will have to answer a lot of questions. So please carry on, Isabel, but I have some questions to answer. Yeah.
So Julien seems to.
Yeah, just one remark. Thank you, John, for your presentation today. It was pretty interesting. And I just have one remark, because if we think about what we would like to do in our pedagogical didactic disposal and what is really do, as you told us, John, I just remember one thing, because during the Shogatsu vacations, I watched an old French movie named L'École Buissonnière from 1949, if I'm not wrong. And they told about the necessity at this period to change education. It was in France. But if we think about it, after watching the movie, in my head, I was like, hey, 70 years later, we are at the same point almost for lots of environments in France or in Japan also. And nothing moved a lot because, as John said during his presentation, that's sometimes difficult to evolve and to make changes for different institutions. But I don't know if you know the movie for everyone, maybe John or Isabel, because that's a French one. But really, I got this impression after watching the movie. It was talking about the Freinet pedagogy, if I'm not wrong, who was a specialist of education in the past century. And that was really interesting to watch what a teacher wanted to implement in his classes in the 50s, before the 50s. And that's sometimes in our recent period, we got exactly the same questions. So I don't know if someone else got the same feeling, but sometimes you got the feeling that nothing really changed or evolved, whereas we would like to.
Yeah, that's interesting. But I think also regarding what you just said, Julian, that among the community of teachers, there is also a strong peer-to-peer effect. And I always tell the same story. I remember when we began that FD initiative in 2009. So first, it was really, once again, it was a community of practice between 10 people who wanted to share. And we were just meeting some colleagues in the hallway and said, you know, we have now a faculty development session on the Friday afternoon. You should come. And it was just spread it like this. There was no official communication or anything. But when it began to work in an industrial way, if I may say, we were always seeking to understand how the people coming were getting the information about that. And it was very interesting to see that faculties that were coming for the first time, when we asked them this question, they were saying, actually, I didn't heard about you through the emailing or something, because in any case, I don't read my email. I heard because my colleague of the room next to mine, of my colleague of the labo, said that he or she came. It was nice, so I came too. And I think that there is this, community movement, which is especially true in the teaching community, I think, working from peer to peer. And I would like to take this opportunity, and once again, Kimikazu, if you don't mind, to take the mic once again, because actually when I was discussing with Sugimori Sensei last Monday, and he told me about a very nice community group that is existing now for the topic of facing the pandemic challenges for teaching practices. And Kimikazu, if you want to say a word, because you have this beautiful, wonderful group which is growing a lot and covering that topic, if you want to say something about that.
英語でうまく発言できるか心配なので、日本語で初めからしたいと思います。
I would like to start in Japanese because I'm not sure if I can express adequately in English. Starting in March in Japan, even in Japan, we were affected by COVID-19. We started to use Facebook group to start grassroots activities. March 31 group was started, and in just 1 week, it was over 3,000, and in 1 month's time, 15,000 people, and 20,000 people are uploading 30 articles, and 10,000 people are gathered on the Facebook group to exchange information on a daily basis now. It's a grassroots peer-to-peer mutual help group, which was non-existent before in Japan. John is doing a digital university faculty development that crosses national borders. I think your program is very effective. And in Japan too, in a separate way, in each university, there was a closed program of faculty development. And I'm serving as administrator of this Facebook group. We have 20,000 people. And now for the first time, we are able to talk about education. And for the first time in Japan, we were able to change the mindset. Usually, we are holed up in a silo or our lab, but because we're faced with a crisis, we were able to start this movement. A Chronicle of Higher Education is a journal in the US, which also started a similar group, and 3.5 million people are participating, exchanging comments daily. Does this address your question, John?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Kimikazuna. It was interesting to mention that because when you think about peer-to-peer activity or community activities, this is a wonderful example that you have in Japan. Once again, I joined that group after the talk we had with Kimikazuna last Monday. I was very impressed by the density of exchanges. Yeah, Kumiko, you're a member too. Yeah, I saw that. I'm just going through the questions, and there are a couple of ones I didn't answer yet. There was Clementina asked me about the
number of universities outside Paris.
Yeah. So going back to the numbers, once again, I was mentioning there is 50,000 staffs and faculties in Paris area. So yeah, usually in the face-to-face old system, we had from 700 to 1,500 registrations per year, approximately. So right now, with the events of last year, yeah, we finished at 800, which is not so bad, I think, but of course there is a potential to go further, definitely. And Clementina, she's asking what universities outside Paris doing, but on the local point of view, they do things. Also, they do things. Maybe the specificity that we have is to do that region-wide and completely integrated in the faculty development programs of the all universities. So maybe, and once again, it's 11, 12 years old initiative that we have. So it's very settled in the landscape. So maybe this is the specificity that we have. And the Ministry of Education, actually, we have been funded by them. Historically, we have been funded by the Ministry of Education in France for faculty development and other things, but we got their support, yeah, definitely. And I saw that there was a very interesting question about informal learning, the way to assess the efficiency of informal learning, and this is definitely a huge question. This is a huge question, and I'm working one of the activities I have in EDUCOS, and my friends of GFD, they certainly remember that I was talking about the learning space rating system that has been developed at EDUCOS for the active learning classrooms. I've been working on that assessment system, and especially I've been working on the Japanese translation of this assessment system, but it's focused on active learning classrooms for formal activities. So as I told you, I have a real interest for informal learning spaces, but right now the framework that is able to assess the practices conducted in informal learning spaces, it yet has to be invented, and I would be very happy to discuss with you if you have ideas about that, but so far, yeah, it still has to be created. Personally, I'm using a lot, and once again, GFD folks, they remind that I like to use time-lapse videos on putting cameras in the rooms and on taking pictures every 5 seconds to make a very fast video that is highlighting the dynamics. But yeah, this is this is growth. It's not very precise. So of course, when I was invited at Sofia University in 2019, there was a lab over there working on a uterance evaluation system. So there was cameras that are checking the posture, the body posture of the students, so we can interpret if they are actively engaged in the exchange or not. So that might be discussed, but actually it was a very interesting framework to do. But definitely for informal learning space, there are a lot of things to imagine still now for assessment. Definitely.
I have two questions now. Just quickly, just really quickly on that one point you said about the cameras and at Sophia and stuff like that. How do you get around the ethics in terms of, do you have posters on the walls to let students know that they're, because I think it's great. I would love to do it, but I'm not sure how that works in terms of prep,
Actually, Naomi, it depends on the universities. Some of them are kibishi or less kibishi about that. What I mean is some of them, they really wanted every users of the space that came on the day to be aware that there was a video recording. Other ones, they just, when I arrived and when I installed the cameras, they just stand in the middle of the space, say, please keep in mind that from now you're going to be staged on the video. If you don't want to be on it, please leave. That's it. So it depends on the institutions. But we always check. I never came hidden to put my camera secretly or something like that. Of course not. But after that, it's the choice of the institution.
Okay, that's good to know. And the other thing I wanted to ask, and it's a little, it's kind of controversial. I'm a sociologist, so just prefacing this is going to my course, but there is the issue of the hidden curriculum, and it is, in my mind, existing even in higher education. Obviously, in schools it exists. In higher education, I do firmly believe part of the function or the role of higher education is to train people for the workplace, and so there is this sense of a hidden curriculum. And you just look at the designs of classrooms, up until informal active learning. But anyway, one thing I'm noticing just this year again is my students are getting a little bit bolshy. Like they're getting a little bit talk back. Some of the emails, some of the things I get is, I don't mind because I'm not a big fan of authority, but it's really indicating to me that there's this confusion about authority now because of the way online learning is somehow removing the hierarchical structure that is built into their physical environment, the material environment of schools and universities, just like churches and hospitals. It is designed to assert authority. We don't have that. I mean, I'm teaching from my room, okay, so I don't have authority. So, and I've noticed this last semester, I'm getting some really cheeky emails, and it's made me think, wow, is this because of the online and now they're not? And so I guess the point is the hidden curriculum's probably being somewhat perverted with online learning. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't honestly, Naomi, I couldn't talk about hidden curriculum. What I just can tell you is that definitely working online and especially using this famous interaction by the chat radically changed the number of questions that we have and the easiness of the questions being asked. Definitely. We perfectly, and this is also what the people say. They say, honestly, I wouldn't have asked the thing I asked you during the session in the way I asked you if I would be face-to-face, because it would be embarrassing. Definitely, I think there is no question about that. It's catalyzing, free way to talk in the good and in the bad sense, maybe, but it's catalyzing. So I couldn't talk about hidden curriculum, but on the way that it's making the people more free to talk, it is definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely all in support of those kind of benefits, but I do wonder about like where they're about, let's say after their degree, they go into the workplace, which ostensibly might be face-to-face, it might be online. But if a student ends up doing their whole degree hypothetically online, they're not acquiring the kind of interaction practices that might be more beneficial for a workplace environment. Do you know what I mean? Like I've had some questions, students even this year, like emailing me saying, like, telling me that they're not handing stuff in because they've been really busy with others, like kind of things that they would not get away with that in a workplace. And I'm like, where is this coming from? But anyway, that's just an aside.
No, that's interesting. It's interesting. I see there is a question in Japanese in the chat, but my Japanese is too light to be able to read it. So I don't know, maybe if the translator, it's the question for 2:32 p.m. or Dosan, I think. I don't know if the translator can say it in English. Maybe, Emma, maybe they don't have the chat. I think the translator, they don't have the chat, maybe.
I don't think it's a question. I think it's a comment.
Okay.
About just distance learning in general, how it's a challenge, but through distance learning in the online format, we're sort of getting closer and closer to one another. And the world is just becoming increasingly virtualized. So hopefully we can complement both distance education and face-to-face lessons. I think that's more or less what the comment is.
I don't know for you guys, but this is maybe a question of a question. This is a topic I would like to discuss with you about the face-to-face activities to keep for the futures. There are always a lot of discussions about the lectures. In lecture rooms, you know, with the faculty standing on the back talking to 200 students, no interaction, something. So I don't know your opinion about that, but is it something that you would consider to keep in the post-COVID era, or finally, should we keep that remotely by just providing nice video recording that the students can use by stopping, rewind if they need or something? I don't know your opinion about that. But this is a usual topic, a hot topic about the things to keep or not. I don't know, maybe Kimikazu, I don't know if you want to say something about that. Thank you, Kumiko. Bye-bye.
John, maybe I could comment.
Sure.
I mean, this is always, as you said, an ongoing discussion, right? But I mean, I have absolutely no doubt that a good live lecture can be a fantastic educational experience. Okay, I don't think there's any doubt over that. I think in many cases, a recorded lecture can be as good or almost as good and has the advantages of being repeatedly viewed, rewound, etc. As you know, I mean, I've essentially changed all my teaching to flipped classroom long before this situation happened. So while I think good lectures are important, I don't want to waste my time with the students. So I use my face-to-face time in discussion with them. But I also think it's dangerous to get too wrapped up in that fight over whether, the role of the lecture, because it very much depends on what kind of what material you're teaching, what the purpose of the particular educational event is. There are certain things that are just best taught by lecture, and there are certain things that are absolutely useless to teach by lecture. So what I think is, though, is that the having more people appreciate that that kind of lecture-based material can survive and can thrive and can be used usefully in the virtual world and can open up opportunities for more face-to-face discussion, more exploratory time, more active engagement, more hands-on experience is important, because that becomes then embedded in people's consciousness, and it just becomes that the options become broader. There's been such a paradigm in the past of the sage on the stage, the lecturer, just speaking the words and passing the knowledge to the students, that many educators still don't ever think beyond that. And I wonder if, the current situation at least challenges some people to think, well, maybe there are other alternatives, maybe there are better ways. So that would be sort of some views I would have on that.
Clementina, she says, yeah, this is development exercise that we have about considering to keep or not the lectures here. But as you said, John, it's not a new topic, and we were discussing that before the COVID as well. I don't know, Emma, about the timing. You tell me, because I think we have to finish by 45, right?
45分までに終えるんでしたっけ？エマさん、時間うまく私は把握してないので、エマさんの方からおっしゃってください。
Yes, that's right.
はい、そうです。45分です。
Any other questions or comments? Or is there any slides you want me to come back to? Yes, Irina.
Thank you for a very great talk, and thank you for, well, I was following the discussion. It was all very interesting. I think, well, what stayed with me from the beginning was Naomi's question or her comment about the role of the physical space, and then a few of the other participants also commented on that, and it kind of got me thinking a little bit. And this might be a little, well, it's a silly question perhaps, but I think we can all agree that this kind of physical experience, physical classroom, let's say, is quite important. But I was wondering if this could be, I don't know if you're the right persons to ask, could it be replaced with some sort of virtual experience, like in virtual games? Because sometimes I feel like I'm missing some of the cues from my students or some of the ideas that they are putting forth because they're not anchored onto anything that surrounds me. I'm always in the same environment. I'm always in my room. Nothing that they say connects to anything around me, right? Like a physical something, where when you're in a classroom, sometimes you remember some things because they were said in a specific physical location, right? Would that be possible, to be reproduced in a virtual environment, a virtual classroom? I know there are people working on virtual offices right now, an actual office, like create the virtual environment. You have to wear the weird masks and all that. It's quite clunky as well yet, but what's your take on this?
You're almost talking about sensorial experience, basically.
Yeah, yes. To experiment the space while you're in your room, but you're experiencing, let's say, virtual classroom interactions.
That's a very interesting question, but honestly, so far, I don't see any alternatives, virtual alternatives. I think this is one of the limits of the distance learning that hasn't been
right.
Definitely. It is very interesting, a sensorial experience, yeah, of course. This is something I discussed pretty extensively when I'm talking about physical learning space, because as you said, yeah, you can connect to a feeling of environment, and this is something that so far you cannot have on distance configuration.
Yeah, that's one of the things that gets lost. And I don't know if that's one of those losses that can be replaced by gaining something in a different place in the online experience. Just, yeah, we'll have to be there more, teach more, try more things, and see how everything, comes back together, evolves or transforms, as you were saying in your presentation.
It's interesting.
Thank you.
Emma, I don't know if I missed question on the chats. Kimikazu was posting something about flipped.
I don't think you missed any questions, but it's really interesting to see how engaged the commentary is in the chat. It almost makes me feel like we should set up like a Discord for faculty development discussion or participate in the Facebook group that Kamikazu told us about.
Can I make a plug for for those members in the room who are at UTokyo, do come and join our lunchtime discussions when they start up again next semester, because this is exactly the kind of thing that we talk about. I think it's really important. There are not many formal channels everyone will sit in their rooms, even more so than normal, and think these things and not share them, and no voices will come out. And it's nice to get everyone to share their thoughts on these and find common ground that can then be pushed forward to, you know, to when more formal discussions about the future of these things are being held. So it's really, really important to get your opinions out there on this stuff, I think.
Emma, I'll let you tell us when it's over. It's up to you.
Sure. So, okay, maybe we can go ahead and wrap up then, seeing as it's approaching 2:45. So actually, I think I can circulate the link to the lunchtime discussions in the feedback email that I'll send following the conclusion of the workshop. But first, let me thank all of you for your very active participation, and of course to you, John, for the very engaging workshop. And to our lovely interpreters, thank you very much for all your work. We actually have 2 upcoming workshops that I will also send emails about. So if you're interested, please do attend those. Those will be on the topic of teaching environmental sustainability in education. And also, we would really very much appreciate it if you would take a few minutes to fill out the feedback form that I linked at the very beginning of the chat, and that I will link once again in the chat, and then also send out via email if that's easier. But anyhow, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much again to all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.